Hey everybody, welcome back to our Neck of the Woods and Vlogmas Day 28. Yes, I have missed a few days, but at least for the first time trying it out, Vlogmas, we got halfway through the month before we really had some missed days. And the second half, yeah, we've only got a few in. We're probably only gonna get this video and maybe one more in, and then the month's gonna be closed up. And then we'll just go back to our everyday kind of doing things around the house and any major projects that we actually have to complete. But if you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button if you guys like this video, and we're just gonna dive right in and do something that I've been wanting to do for a while, a couple weeks at least. I had to do my research and see what I actually needed, but what we're gonna be working on is actually replacing the thermostat with a better one, and I'll tell you why in a second. And hopefully at the end, it will result in us using a hell of a lot less propane through the boiler, trying to get this garage heated up. I don't think I'm gonna do the same thing in the house, but let me just show you what I got going on and what my thought process is. So the first thing that we deal with here, Aaron is obviously parking in the garage, and one day I will be with the truck. Well, these doors are massive. That's a 9x9 door, and that's a 9x18 door. So you can imagine, even if it's only open for just a second, just literally how much air swoops in and how much air swoops out. And when it's like -8 degrees as it was the other day, with a -40 wind chill and blowing with like 40-mile-an-hour winds or more, you can imagine the second that air temperature reaches that thermostat, it kicks the boiler on. Well, not only does that really waste our propane and having our boiler run too often, but it's just the fact that it does take a while to actually heat the air up in here, since all of the heat is coming down from the concrete. It takes a while for that to come back up to temperature and kind of reheat the air up in here. And I've mentioned before, we are gonna put a mini split in. So kind of like what I did the other day, I've had the kerosene heater out here. So if we are in and out, I kind of fire up the kerosene heater to help heat this air up a lot faster. That kicks the boiler off a lot sooner. And when that thermostat basically sees that indoor air temperature, we're gonna be blowing out hot air through the mini split. That would have got that kicked off sooner, but the mini split is just not within the budget or within time frame yet. So what we have to do today is we got to change out that thermostat, and we're going to go with a new one with a floor probe. So I'm going to show you how to install that and what the game plan is. But to go over it real quick, it's called a Tekmar thermostat, again, with a floor probe. Now, this is our third thermostat that we've actually installed. The first one had like 10 buttons. I couldn't figure out what the problem was. I didn't know if it was the wiring that was the issue, but something was obviously going on with it. And with all the buttons and probably 7 or 8 spots for wires to connect back here, I just couldn't get it to work. It wouldn't kick the boiler on, and I had to return it. It was about 38 bucks. Then I went and got this guy, which was only about 14 bucks. It's literally just an up or down for the temperature, a hot, off, and cold, and there is a fan setting, but obviously we don't have a fan on a radiant floor. And it works extremely fast, as you just saw. I literally just hit it up a degree or two, and the heat instantly pops on. So there's no delay, there's no wait. It just freaking works for $14. But again, I just can't have it kick on so often when it reaches air temperature. So this Tekmar, unfortunately, is $112 shipped. I looked on Amazon, I looked on Supply House and other places, and after tax and shipping, etc., we got up to $112. And from supplyhouse.com, this guy actually did end up being the cheapest. But the reason why I went with it, again, going back to that first sensor that I had, where there was like 7 or 8 spots to attach, you know, reds and blues and grays and green wires and all that stuff that was confusing. It was easy to go with. It's because it literally has a picture of my Takeo controller on there. So this should be absolutely dummy proof that I cannot mess this up. And while there is 7 slots on this one, it at least again tells you exactly which ones we're gonna use. So 2 for the sensor, 2 going to the controller, how that is now. But unfortunately, we do have to run 2 more wires down to the controller off of this 24 volt and a COM spot. So hopefully I can get this installed easily. I have spray foamed down in there. So hopefully I can remove some of the spray foam and pull the wire out with new wire attached to it. And then once on the inside of the basement, I can kind of pull more through, retape it together and pull it back through. So that way I've got a little bit of wire on this side and a little bit of wire on that side for all 4 wires that I need. So kind of a pain in the butt, but hopefully I'll be able to get it done. But really, that can't go any simpler for an install. And again, I got it because it has the Takeo controller on here, and it should just be super, super easy. We got to get the thermal camera out here to see actually what the concrete temperature is right now. Because while it may be 55.4 degree temperature up in here, well, the concrete may be closer to like 65. Well, I don't want it 65 in here, but I need this to say keep the concrete at 65 because the air temperature will remain at that 55. For right now, let's just go ahead and get our wires run. Then we'll go ahead and mount this guy up. And then I'll figure out where on the concrete I'm going to cut the floor, which is why I need it running right now so I can start seeing those radiant tubes pop up. Although I'm not really concerned about cutting any tubes because we are about 9 inches of concrete down at back there, and we're 5.5 inches all the way out front on the other side of the door on the apron. So there's no way I'll be cutting down and actually hitting one of those tubes because of how thick this floor is. But I still want the thermal camera on because I don't want to put the temperature probe right over top of a radiant pipe. You kind of want to be in between 2 radiant pipes, so that will give you a more consistent temperature. And then after we cut the floor, we basically have to fill in our crack that we're going to cut and a hole that we may drill. And we need to repair the concrete with some 2-part epoxy that will go ahead and scrape that on and smooth it all out. But for right now, let's let this run for a minute, let the floor get hot. We'll kill the breaker, and then we'll just start feeding the wire from there. All right, hopefully maybe I can even return these. I think I might still have the boxes. But the reason why this guy ended up working, and I don't think the other one worked, this guy actually is labeled on its letters that it's using. It's labeled as W and R, and on my controller, I had a W and an R. I think on that last one, I didn't, and if I did, again, I hooked it up the same way, WR to WR, and it wasn't working. So, but for a garage, again, it just absolutely does not make sense to be using temperature through the air when you have the option to actually take the temperature from the floor itself. All right, I think I know why that one only has 2 wires and this one's gonna need 4. And that is because this has absolutely no battery and that guy used 2 AAAs. So the reason why I think I'm connecting into the controller down in the basement is because I need that 24 volt power source because I do not have any voltage off for this guy when I did have it off of that guy because it had batteries. So all right, that seems strong enough. Fingers crossed. Well, that didn't work. I literally just broke the wire on the inside. So we got a foot of ICF, and like I said, it's obviously spray foamed in there. So we got to come up with another plan. Hopefully maybe I can pull the wire out this way now, but we got to come up with something to remove this foam. And then I can't really just go poking in here as hard as I want to because there's an Ethernet line running through there that I don't want to snap. And then obviously I don't want to poke holes in any of the radiant, so I can't use something sharp or hammer it or anything. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think about this for a second to see how I can actually get back through this with that foam in the way. All right, round 2. Hopefully this works. That paint stirrer was pretty thick, but now unfortunately we're gonna attach to a 12-2 wire here but now we're pulling back 12.2 plus all 4 of the signal wire. But it's about the same size as the paint stirrer, so hopefully this pulls right on through. All right, that worked nice. I'm glad I didn't have to like hammer or chisel through there. And again, worry about damaging the water pipe or this Ethernet line. But what I'm gonna do right now is I know my lengths are good on each side, and I'm gonna pull this back quite a bit. So now I know which one this is. So this one we're gonna go ahead and attach to the thermostat right now. And we'll put those again on the W and the R. But we'll hook this up to the thermostat now. And then this one will be the power control wires that we'll have to put to the 24 volt and the comm wiring. But hopefully I pull back on this enough that I know which is which. All right, so we'll get all this tidied up, but right now everything is 100% connected. So panel and boiler back on. And let's go, fingers crossed, that thermostat out in the garage. Let's hope power is on, and then we'll get this sucker programmed up. All right, sweet. We know everything is working perfectly. I literally just came out here. The temperature is on. It's actually running right now. Since the floor sensor is connected, it's reading that the floor sensor is 53 degrees. The 73 degrees is wrong because it's in my hand. It's picking up my, my heat. But if we go ahead and we hold this down for 3 seconds, we get into the mode setting, which will say that we want the heat on or the heat off. Obviously, we want the heat on. If you hold it down for 3 seconds again, hold it down again. We want Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. We hold 3 down again. We got an auto light on or off. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's because it's so light in here right now. If that actually is backlit or something, I don't know, but we'll just leave that on auto. Hold it down for 3 seconds again. Floor setting, 65. So we got to go get the thermal. I don't know how hot the concrete actually is, but actually, while this thing's running out here in the garage, it looks like the concrete right now, or the water coming back, is actually at about 65. So let's go ahead and just set the concrete to 65. Hold down one more time. I guess that's the type of sensor that we're using. Hold down one more time. And we escape and we're back to the home screen. Now I noticed this thing can do 3 different modes. It will only do air temperature if you do not have the floor sensor connected. It'll do floor only, or it will do floor and air. I'm not exactly sure why you would do floor and air. This says it's recommended in areas with large windows that allow the sunshine into the room to keep it warm without the need for heat. Huh. Well, we don't have to worry about that in the garage. We have no sunlight that comes in here, so we want floor only. So floor only, if we go all the way down on the room setting and we just keep going, you get to 39 degrees and it shuts off the room sensor. And once you hit that 39 degrees, it looks like it shuts off the air temperature. So I think we're on floor only right now. It does say room is 74, because again, it's in my hand. The floor sensor is still only reading 53, but obviously it's not buried yet in the concrete. But the fact that the room is on, I know we're not set to 74 degrees, so that should not be reading the floor temperature or the air temperature at all. It should only be reading that floor sensor. So I think I'm gonna let this go. Let's go ahead and find out with the thermal where we can bury this guy at. Then we'll cut a groove in the concrete, seal it up, and then we'll just keep an eye on this over the next day or so and make sure it's working properly. All right, so it looks like the concrete's about 53.4, at least on the surface. So I can't exactly tell you how hot it actually is down inside since it's so thick. But the fact that we are still pretty much 53 average everywhere, and that the thing hasn't been running that long. I mean, I'd have to run this thing for a good hour or more before I finally start seeing a radiant floor tube. So I think before we actually do cut that into the floor, this thing is gonna have to run a while. So yeah, I'm gonna have to let this run for an hour or two and really heat those pipes up. And they do show good out here once they have been running for a while. But I think what I'm gonna do, I think you have 2 options. In the directions, they basically just say leave the floor sensor kind of on top, so running parallel. But because this concrete is so thick, I would like to get that sensor kind of in the middle of the concrete. So what I think I'm gonna do is once I see where one of these pipes is right here and over here, I think I'm gonna actually drill straight down and get that sensor down into the concrete. And then we'll go ahead and seal it up and cut a channel for the wire back over so we can go up the wall. So I'll be back in like an hour or two once this floor gets really, really hot. And it should run forever because that floor sensor is not changing. It's still showing 53 degrees. And we have the floor set to 65, so that'll guarantee this thing's basically never gonna turn off because that sensor sitting in the air is never gonna get up to 65 degrees. So I'll be back in like 2 hours, hang tight. All right, it's been about an hour and a half later. I'm gonna go back into the garage, but real quick, I wanna tell you guys about another problem I discovered. And I kinda knew this was gonna happen, but I didn't think it would be that bad. Because our exhausts on both of the boilers are up there. I don't know if you can see them where I'm standing, but because both of the exhausts are up there, those obviously have condensation. And Rinnai wants you to either use a 90-degree down or a 45 out. They don't really say to run it straight out, and they say that you can't really 90 or 45 up. Well, why is that a problem? Because when the condensation drips down, it hits the roof of the garage, which of course you're then just micro dripping water drops onto your roof. It instantly freezes in the winter, forms a massive ice ball. Not only can that slide off one day when this is a sidewalk and whack somebody in the head, but also I guarantee that water condensation is acidic as hell, which cannot be healthy for my shingles right there. So I don't know what to do. Rinnai did say that if condensation does build up into the pipe and it drains back to the boiler, internally, it will link up to where the normal condensation drain is anyway. So it will drain on out, but I don't know. What do you guys think I should do? Should I 45 up so that way water can no longer drip onto the shingles and just let it drip back to the boiler? Or should I do something else? I really don't have to worry about it 90ing up or 45ing out, because it's not like, I don't think really birds are gonna get up there and do anything. It is protected by the overhang of the house roof above it. Although if the condensation goes up and hits the soffit of the house, then condensation can form on the house soffit. That could freeze and then still fall down. So there's really no good alternative. It's way too far up on the angle of the garage that I just don't want to really attach a pipe and run it down the side of the house and then go into the gutter. Like, that's just gonna look nasty. Not to mention I have 2 of them to do that too. But I don't know, any recommendations that you guys think of how I can get ice balls to stop forming on my shingles, not to mention possibly killing my shingles from like highly, highly acidic water. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Well, crap, we've been running for an hour and the floor is still not that hot to where I can see the tubes. But I do want to say right here in this corner, pretty much right around in there from like here to here, there is absolutely no radiant pipes. Because before I learned anything about radiant, I thought I was gonna have to put like a boiler or a hot water tank in each spot. So like a hot water tank for the garage, the basement, and the first floor. So I was like, I'm not gonna put radiant floor tubes underneath of where a boiler or a hot water tank's gonna go. So there is a missing section right there. But if I put it all the way over there by the sensor in that corner, then we're a good like 3 or 4 feet away from any of the radiant tubes. And that spot over in that concrete is probably never gonna get hot. So I think my first tube probably isn't even available until we get like all the way over here by the spigots. But if I'm not mistaken, going along the back wall, those are actually the cold pipes. So the way I have the garage set up is the hot pipes, all 3 runs actually start to run down this way. They run in front of all of the garage doors. So that way that pipe never really has a chance to freeze. Because let's say if the water was returning the opposite way, it's -8 outside, the outside concrete apron starts to get really cold. And if the water coming back through there was, let's say, only like 50 degrees, I didn't want that 50-degree water mixing with the outside -degree. So I ran the hot pipes in front of the garage door, which right now we have the boiler set back to 120. The 110 degrees was not working. The delta difference was a little bit closer, but like in the house, instead of returning at like 70 degrees, we were starting to return at like 60. So even though our delta was closing a little bit, it was also widening a little bit. So I think 120 is actually kind of where we have to be, even though the delta is not perfect. But as a perfect example, there you can see all 3 runs are running in front of the garage together as a massive heat source. And then there you go. You can start to see that's probably the middle run right there. That's super hot. And right over top of one of them pipes, it looks like we're 59.7 degrees. So that's probably actually what we'll lower it to. I know I said we would set the floor at 65, but again, this guy's been running for an hour and a half. We're at 55.7. That's exactly where I want the garage to be. So I guess the air temperature and the floor temperature aren't that far off. Let's go ahead and lower this thing down to 59. We'll be 55 in the air, and that should be freaking perfect. The only thing that sucks, like I was mentioning though, is the pipes do start to run around that way, and then along this back wall, that's the cold pipe. So unfortunately, with the concrete being 57, 58, and the water coming back at about 60, 65, I think the temperature's too close, that the hot pipes aren't coming up through the concrete. So I guess we'll just go ahead and put this guy somewhere over around these doors. And instead of actually drilling down into the concrete, because I can't see where the pipes are, we'll just go ahead and cut down through the concrete an inch or so. And we'll just lay it completely flat and parallel. And then we'll glue it down in. So let's get the grinder out and let's start cutting, I guess. I was trying to use the water to control the dust, but that was not working. All right, so we will let that dry for a little bit before I use that epoxy. I don't know if it's gonna stick to wet concrete, but hopefully it's deep enough. I have a feeling that wire is gonna wanna bend up in spots, so I don't know. It may not be the most pretty install, but we'll try and push it down or go little by little. But it's almost 50 degrees outside today, so I think it's a good time to get all these cars washed while we wait for that to dry. And then we can finally put our car cover on this guy and kind of keep them stored away until winter time. But the normal vehicles are looking disgusting. So let's wash up some cars and wait for some concrete to dry up. Oh man, that is so nice. I know this isn't a car vlog, but holy crap. Does ceramic coating make 1,000 times difference? I have had every color car you can think of. White is impossible to wash. You're literally spending hours scraping off every little piece of black tar because it shows up so easily. Ceramic coating, you're just wipe, it's freaking off. I had the car done a long time ago with Jack's Wax, graphene, like ceramic coating. Wow, this is the second time I've washed it and it is just once over, super quick and easy. The water beads off with the blower that I have and it's just, dirt is gone, easy to clean. I absolutely recommend it. If you've never washed a car that's freshly ceramic coated or graphene coated, holy crap, what a difference it makes. All right, final step. We got this 2-part epoxy. It mixes in here. It's by Quikrete. It's for concrete repair. It looks like you can just spread it out and then use a spatula or whatever to get it to get down into cracks a little bit easier. But this tube or the wire is being difficult like I thought. So hopefully I can get a little bit down in here and get it to kind of stick in the hole, because obviously it wants to flip around and move and be annoying and everything else. So if I can get it to just stick a little bit in here, then it won't move so much. But I knew that was gonna happen. Yeah, that looks like it's gonna work. So let me go get some gloves on. We'll stick it down in there, and then we'll put a whole big glob on top and we'll scrape it smooth. But this actually should work pretty well. All right, everybody, if that doesn't work, I don't know what's going to. It says that's gonna take about 3 hours to get really tacky, so I'm not gonna touch it. I've never used this kind before. A kind that I've used in the past is actually made by Quikrete also, but it's just in a bottle that you just pull the top off, squirt it down in, and then you're done. And it actually hardens very, very well. So hard, you actually have to get like a grinder out or a sander with like a 40 or 60 grit. It hardens so much. And I'm surprised because it's just sitting in a bottle. This stuff, again, actually is mixing going down through that tube. So it's like a 2-part epoxy. So this should get actually really hard too, but it does say that it keeps flexibility and stuff. So if the concrete, I guess, were moving, expanding and contracting, etc., that should work and not come up one day. And then when we actually do the garage floor with our epoxy coating that we plan on doing, hopefully they go together because it's epoxy and epoxy. I don't know what the professionals use by fixing cracks and stuff first. In fact, where Aaron parks, we kind of have to do something like that before we actually finish this floor, because when it rains so bad when we pour the garage floor, there's actually just big spots that have come up, like this guy right in here, if you can see that. All of this is gonna have to be repaired and filled in with some sort of epoxy and then smoothed over, kind of like I just did with the spatula or the trowel kind of there. So I don't know what the professionals use, but again, hopefully they coexist with each other, and the epoxy floor and that epoxy ceiling there gets along. But I'm gonna head down in the basement actually. There's a few cracks that I noticed down there, so I'm gonna just use up this tube because I can, and we'll fill those in a little bit. And then when that fully hardens, we'll go ahead and bring it on up the wall. We'll attach it. We'll go down to the basement, tie up all those wires and make everything look nice and pretty. But I really do think this is gonna help cut down on not running the boiler so much, even though we are only like an inch or so under the ground there. But I think it's gonna work. It's better than an air temperature sensor in my opinion. So I'll let you guys know how it's going, maybe in a YouTube short or something. Let you know if that's actually working and if the boiler is running less and we can actually open the doors. But for this video and today, I think it's a success. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. Vlogmas Day 28. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already, and hit us up on NeckofTheWoods 2020 on Instagram if you want to personal message us, or if you guys have anything to say. And until next time, I will see you guys then. Take care.